Today, Keir Starmer got applause just for walking on the stage.
Conference, the glitterati has arrived.
The Labour leaders established a grip on this party that was unthinkable not so long ago. In the final session, the messaging continued with the Shadow Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, telling the conference the NHS was facing bankruptcy if it didn't reform.
Our reforms will be fundamental and deep. They have to be.
At the end, the traditional singing of the red flag.
We'll keep the red flag flying.
This year's venue festooned with Union Jacks. Gone the Palestinian flag waving of the Corbyn era. As the party conference finished, I caught up with Keir Starmer and I started by asking him whether he thought Israel should be held to exactly the same standards in military conflict as any other country, or whether, because of its history, he thought it had a special status.
Any action, whether it's Israel or any other country, must be in accordance with international law. But Hamas could release those hostages now, and that is what they should do. And until they do, Israel has the right to take action to try and get those hostages back safely.
Now, I want to come to some of the things you were saying in your speech yesterday. You were painting a picture for people of what kind of Prime Minister you'd be, your values, that sort of thing. And you talked about dragging your party back from being a party of protest. But you were in the shadow cabinet. You were up on the podium under Jeremy Corbyn. Did you have to drag yourself back?
Well, we lost our way in 2017 and 2019, and that is why I was utterly determined to change our party. That had to be the first priority, expose the Tories and the SNP as not fit to govern, and then take the opportunity yesterday to speak not just to the Labour Party but to the country, and to compare 13 years of decline with 10 years of national renewal, and to appeal beyond the Labour Party to voters who perhaps voted Tory, be part of this national project.
I specifically wanted to ask about you, and you said we lost our way. Is it that the whole time Jeremy Corbyn was leading the Labour Party, you believed in it at the time, you've been on a journey? Were you biting your lip? Did you have your fingers crossed behind your back? Did you always hope that you'd bring the party to where it is now? What's going on?
Many members of the Parliamentary Labour Party were operating in different places. I was in the shadow cabinet on things like anti-Semitism. I was challenged hard in the shadow cabinet.
Were you biting your lip the whole time? Was it painful for you? Or was there a slight element of a journey here?
We lost our way in 2017
you include yourself
and 2019. And I see elements of this now in the Tory party, where they've gone to a place where most Tory voters would say that's not really the party I voted for. We've come out of that. We've turned this party around. I can be judged on my leadership. I stood up 3.5 years ago and said this is what we need to do with our party, and we ruthlessly have changed our party, and that's why we're now able to speak not just internally but to the country as a whole.
Okay, I want to ask you about planning. Is it the case that if a community really doesn't want a great big new housing development, maybe in an entire new town in its district, you'll listen, but in the end, they might have to lump it?
We have to listen, of course, and what I want to do is to try and ensure that we get the right development in the right place.
Everybody always wants that.
Yes, of course, but of course we will come up against resistance. You'll have no end of people who say, yes, I want to build a better Britain. Yes, I know young people need a house that they can buy, but don't do it here. And we will have to bulldoze through that. We will have to be prepared to take difficult decisions. Now, I actually think that most communities do want housing, as long as it's the right housing in the right place.
People have
they
always
need to
said
know
that,
the infrastructure is in the right place, the hospitals, the schools that are needed.
But you know as well, don't you, that although there's an affordability crisis as well as a shortage crisis in housing all over the country, it's at its most intense in the south and the southeast. And what you're really talking about is putting in houses in the Buckinghamshires, the Bedfordshires quite topically, maybe around Cambridge, the M1 corridor. That's where most of this is going to go. That's just what everybody who studies housing says. Those are the people who should brace themselves, aren't they?
Well, I think the housing needs to be across the whole of the country, and we will be inviting bids for our new towns. But just to come to your question, within those areas there are many what I call grey belts, which is areas that are technically
Yes.
within the green belt, but they're
You talk-
disused
no,
car
that's the
parks,
easy
they're
bit. It's the-
wastelands.
absolutely,
But they're
but-
not being used at the moment, and they
That's-
should be.
Can I ask you about a different point? You're very clear that you want to borrow to invest, but not for everyday spending if you're in power. But Wes Streeting's just been talking about the crisis in the NHS. There are schools that could go bankrupt soon, let alone many councils, hospitals as well. What happens in the first 2 to 3 years of a Labour government when you're waiting for economic growth to happen, but you don't want to borrow to help the running costs of these public services? It looks like it's going to be beyond grim.
But we have to have, and do have, strong fiscal rules. If we've learned one thing in the last 12 months, we learned from Liz Truss, if you make unfunded spending commitments, you lose control of the economy, and it's working people who pay.
It is gonna be grim.
Their mortgages have gone up. Everything they want to buy, their weekly, monthly shops have gone up because of the damage to the economy. I'm not prepared to even countenance that for a Labour
It's
government.
going to be very, very tough. You're going to be waiting for growth, hoping it comes. It never comes that quickly. You could be waiting for years as Prime Minister, and these services could be toppling.
I think we can go
On
at
your
speed
watch.
on growth. Most investors are saying to me, global investors are saying, we do have money to invest, we're just not prepared to invest in the UK whilst it's chopping and changing, where you see the chaos, changing prime ministers, changing positions. That's why we need the stability. We can put the hope on top of that and we can go at speed. But of course, it's going to be a very hard start because of the mess that the Conservatives have made of our country.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.